Hey everyone, this is Chase with InsurGrid. I'm here today with Eric Hammann of the Hammann Agency out in Kansas City, Kansas. Eric, thanks for joining. Maybe tell everyone, a little bit more about your agency.
Well, we're in Missouri. That's important to people around here. But Kansas City,
Oh,
Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, so it is in Missouri mostly. But yeah, we are a agency that started in April. I started from scratch. I did not purchase any book from any other agents. I didn't do anything in that regard. I started from scratch, and I've been building my agency that way. And so now we have our office, and we opened our office on August 1st. I've got a producer, a couple marketers working here, and my wife works here as kind of a service person to send out the thank you cards, things like that. Manage the alerts, make sure people fill out their documents, just like one day a week. And most of the things we do in our agency is I do not buy internet leads. So I've been doing a lot of event marketing. I went to a bridal show here in Kansas City, which led to a lot of leads. And I do a lot of giveaways on social media. So I gave away tickets to a Chiefs game. I've given away money towards Christmas. I've given away things like concerts, and that I keep that alive, and I try to give myself time to work it. And then our producers, we have a 2-call system. We do have a 1-call system sometimes, but we have a 2-call system, and that is we get their name, address, and phone number. That's all we can ask for really on Facebook without getting flagged sometimes. So then we try to get a hold of them right after they put in for the giveaway, or if we met them at an event the next week, and we are gathering their information we need. And at the end of that, that's when the InsurGrid link comes in. And so really it's a 2-call system. We get their info less than 5 minutes, and then we set up a time to meet with them in person, for us to go to them to do a Zoom, or last resort's a call. And that's really been a change. We were calling a lot, and we realized that the value of getting in front of people, and that comes with being a newer agent. So the way that we're using InsurGrid, and I know you asked about our agency, but when we have that 2-call system, so we go through and we get all the important information for the quote, whether it's a homeowners, renters, vehicles, things like that. As we say at the end of every call, we say, hey, thanks for your time today. I'm going to send you a text and an email with this link that we use to collect some of the information we ask for. But if you can fill that out as best you can, it will allow us to make the most informed quote. And especially if we know, like, they have a motorcycle or an RV, if they have a homeowners, we're going to get their loan number on those deck pages, things like that. So we kind of explain the why, and we send it to them, and we say, hey, if you can't get through it, then we'll still be able to work with you, but make sure you try to make that effort, take 5 minutes and do that. And we've had probably 15% of people do it. And it's a really, and sometimes we even use it again after the quote, like, hey, I don't have your VIN number for your motorcycle. If you just want to fill out this, if you don't have your login, you can hit change password, walk them through that. That's really been a huge help. And also just on the first side of it, where even if they don't log into their current insurer, if they do the driver information, it helps us validate motor vehicle records and things like that by having that driver's license number. And so it's not always a huge win with getting the full amount, but at least if we see they initiated it, it shows A, that they're interested in the quote, and B, that we have a good chance of providing value, because Farmers Insurance is not a company that sells on price. And so we want to make sure that when we go into it, that we're asking the right questions in the presentation, but having the deck pages, just as anyone would know, gives us the opportunity to compare, and versus auto data prefill that you get from a clue report. And so that's how we're using it. We're also sending it to people. Like, I've sent it to my friends. If I'm going back and looking at my regular market, or anybody on Facebook that sends us a message, or someone that asks me a question, I can just text them the link and say, hey, if you can go in here and fill this out, if I need any other information, I'll reach out to you. But it's a good place for us to start, even with outside of the regular 2-call system of our leads. So that's kind of how we're using it. It's been working really well. We just started using it 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I think we've gotten, like I said, around 15% in some form, and probably I think I have like 36 or I don't know, 36 deck pages or something like that in my dashboard right now. So
Yeah.
it's working pretty well. The two things I would say most importantly is it shows more, I guess there's a confidence level, maybe it's a placebo effect, but it shows intent. If a client, because we're doing giveaways, the people we're talking to are not shopping for insurance, and getting called from other people, but we do have to convince them to let us try to give them a no obligation quote. And if they do that, it helps make sure that, hey, at least it gives us more confidence that, especially if we don't know rate, if we don't know who they're insured with, and they give us the information, hey, did you know your teenage driver's not listed, or things like that. Furthermore, I would say the things I mentioned before, if you're asking for info, you can always usually, I'd say 90% of the time you get people's cars to pull up. You don't have to ask for a VIN. But if it's a specialty vehicle, if it's a motorcycle, if they have some special coverage on a wedding ring, which we ask those questions, it gives us all the information we need to start the quote and have a quote prepared, instead of having to have a 3-call system, because we'll have a quote. Well, I have a motorcycle too. Oh, well, let me take a look at that. I didn't get that VIN. Just give me your deck pages and I can get all that stuff for you, and unless they've got it at multiple insurance companies, of course, but that makes a huge difference. The other big thing is the loan number. People trying to find on their mortgages, who's your lien holder, who's your lien holder, and getting that information. You get the exact address and the loan number, unless they recently refinanced. But it just helps you be more prepared. Anything that a deck page does, you got to remember, these are strangers. So most of the time people are willing to tell you how much they pay a month or something to that regard, but they don't tell you that they've got a 2020 Jetta with 2550 coverage, or that they've got a specialty, something on we don't know anything about their dwelling. If they've got a special line of, maybe they've got a special dog coverage or water coverage or something. So it's just about having the informed perspective to go back to them, and then it shows their intent.
And consumers, you've gotten 50 some on deck pages. They're willing to go through and share that information, because they don't want to go and find the information themselves, or even worse, call their current agent and have the agent send over the information. That's a red flag.
Right. And it also, I would say, the ability to, I don't think very many people go and change their password from InsurGrid. I think we could explain that better when they're stopped. But I've had people upload their documents too, even if it's just an insurance card, because at least it gives us VIN numbers. At least it gives us, it's more information than we had, just by saying at the end of the call, hey, Chase, thanks a lot for your time today. We're looking forward to meeting with you at X time. I'm going to send you a quick text and email. If you have 5 minutes to complete this link, it really helps us be the most informed. Make sure, no matter what happens with our conversation, that when you leave our office, we can sleep tomorrow, because you've got the protection you need.
Yeah.
And the kind of selling InsurGrid, I even tell people it's my website. When it pops up, it has my picture. It says Farmers Insurance, Eric Hammann Agency. I have a farmer's website, but this is, I've even told people, hey, I've got a website that we use, and I'm going to send it to you. And if you have any questions. So it's been pretty good in that regard. So it's really simple. I mean, you really only have to get, first of all, the cost is not, it's not very much. So if I was looking at a new agent versus the cost versus reward, if you could figure out how to get even 10%, if you're being on the phone a lot, I mean, we make 150, 200 calls in our agency a day, right? So that's not always new people, but if you can get 10% of them to fill out your link, that's 20 households of deck pages. And so, I mean, the ones that answer, right? If you can get 10% of those, then, and if you sell 2 of them, you're probably paying for the product. So if anything, it gives you the credibility to easily access the documents. You can easily keep them in there. You don't have to download them to a server. You can go back and you can get them on your iPad or your phone or your laptop, wherever you're at. So if you save them, versus scanning them in or looking for an email from a client. And like I said, it gives you immediate credibility to just say, hey, how are you getting, I would ask people how they're getting them today. You have to explain what declarations pages even are to people. A lot of people don't have the ability to do that or don't have a desire. And so if all they have to do is log into their current insurance, and kind of go through that, and then we don't see any of their private information other than their deck pages. So kind of explaining that. And if I was a new agent that was coming in, and I had the cash flow to spend a little bit every month on a product, you have to be real specific on what you're looking at versus, some of it is not worthwhile. But in InsurGrid, you really only have to get 2 or 3 deck pages a month to pay for the product. And that's 2 or 3 deck pages you probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
And the time savings of, even if you get the deck pages, the old fashioned way of going back and forth via email or getting on the phone, it saves you a lot of time.
They're all one place. And they have the insured's name, and you can search, and it's easy to find and super easy.
Well, Eric, thanks for coming on and telling us about your experience and in Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas. Can't make that mistake again. But thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it.